Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's topic is looking at Office 365 and Microsoft 365 and going through some details of each solution so you can discover which one is right for your business. Is it Office 365, Microsoft 365? Who knows? Today, presenting on the webinar, we have Sajid Rafiq, who is our Cloud Solution Specialist. He'll be running through the majority of the webinar for you today. If I could just run through some very quick housekeeping for you. During the webinar, you will be muted but can submit questions anytime via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. There is a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions, we can read these out and answer these for you. The webinar recording will be made available to you within the next day or so. And there is a critique form at the end of the webinar. Just pop up. There's just 3 or 4 questions because we do really appreciate your feedback. So if you could just take a minute or two to fill this out, be much appreciated. Just going to hand you over to Saj now, who is going to run through the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Cassie. I'm just going to see if I can share my screen. If you can let me know, Cassie, if you can see my screen.
Yeah, perfect. Good to go.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Let me just bring up the PowerPoint. Thank you very much. And afterwards, as Cassie said. Really, today is just to explain the main differences between Office 365 and Microsoft 365, and we're going to go into a little bit about enterprise mobility and security and Windows 10. At the end of this webinar, what I'm going to do is offer a workshop, and because in an hour or in half an hour, you can't really go too deep into this technology. So what I like to do is offer a little workshop which there is no charge for. It'd be me coming along, just going, understanding what you're trying to do, and explaining the Office 365 and Microsoft 365 in a bit more depth, so to speak. So quite quick, simply put, Microsoft 365 Enterprise basically contains Office 365, EM+S, or Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows 10. That's it. There's 3 pillars to Microsoft 365. And we'll explain why Microsoft came up with the Microsoft 365, or my reasons behind that. But let's look at those 3 pillars individually and then see why bundled together they make a more fantastic story to tell, so to speak. So, Office 365. Interesting slide here, just quickly, just to look at the different generations we have in our workplace. Believe it or not, we have 4 different types of generations working together in a single organization. And we need to be mindful of that. So we understand that different generations work different ways. Each generation wants to be different to the previous generation, not just in technology, but in music, in fashion and everything else. But as you'll see, is some people will embrace that technology, some people would rather not do that technology or use that technology. Interesting, there was an article I read the other day that by 2021, 50% of your workforce will be in the millennial and Z generation. I don't know if that's true. I guess you have to look at each organization on an individual level, but if that is the case for your organization, then we need to look at actually what tools are there out there to help my organization to embrace this generation, but also be mindful of the generation that's already there working for me. I guess Office 365 really answers that question quite well. I quite like this slide because it does say to me, well, actually, you know what? We are allowing people to be creating and sharing content and working in real time. That's what Office 365 is allowing my users to do. But also, it's allowing my users to communicate with each other. Well, whether that's within the organization, whether that's outside the organization, whether that's individually or in teams. And they're also coordinating meetings, projects, just to make sure that they're productive and get their work done. And actually connecting people, finding the right people for the right resources. You know, sometimes when you're working for an organization that has 300, 500, 800, 1,000 users and more, how do you know who's the best person to ask for specific questions? So sometimes finding those resources is a challenge in itself. And Office 365 brings all that together. Okay, I'm not going to go through to individual workloads or which workloads does what, but what we're sort of saying as Office 365, it allows me to do all those four things. And I think the word that overarches all those four is productivity. This is an old slide, but I think it's still valid to now. When I talk to people about Office 365 and I sort of say, well, actually, what do you think Office 365 is? And they'll say, oh, it's Office Pro Plus, isn't it? Or it's just Exchange Online. Office 365 is more than these components. Yes, if all you need is an email system in the cloud, then you can just buy Exchange Online, or you can just buy SharePoint Online. If all you need is a copy of Office Pro Plus in a subscription form, then just buy the Pro Plus. But when you buy Office 365 or buy Office 365 as a plan, you're going to get a whole lot more. And again, the plan you purchase will depend on which of these workloads you will receive. So when you go into profile your users, or when you're looking at implementing Office 365, you need to think, actually, what is it we're trying to do? And how is Office Plan 3 or Office Plan 5 going to help me to achieve that? Now, I'm not going to go into licensing. I'm not a licensing expert, and I don't really claim to be a licensing expert. It's a dark art form in itself. But you do need to know that there are loads of plans out there. Okay, and again, contact your account manager. One of the things that we can do is sit down with you and profile your users and look at what plan is appropriate for you. As I said, you may not even need to go with a plan. If, for example, the next 6 months, all you're doing is just migrating your emails and nothing else, then why buy a plan 1 or plan 3 or plan 5? Just buy Exchange Online for 6 months and then migrate to a plan, because that's when the additional workloads will be needed. But yep, contact your account manager and we will help you with it. And you can mix and match your plans. You don't have to say, actually, I just want E3 for all my users. You may have some of your users that want the F1 plan, some of the users where E3 is appropriate, and 1 or 2 of the users where E5 may be appropriate. Business, the simple way of understanding the plans is business is up to 300 users, enterprise is from 0 all the way up to thousands and thousands of users. The major plan that most people go for is an E3. And an E3 plan, you have Office, SharePoint, all the other workloads that we talked about previously. And it's all about the cloud productivity, and it's all about the rich communication collaboration. When you go to E5, this is where I would say there's 3 pillars in here. There's PBX in the cloud. If that's something that you're interested in, then an E5 SKU does make more sense. If analytics and Power BI Pro and all the APIs for the analytic tools is what you need, real-time reporting, then actually that could be a solution, and you can purchase these on their own. And there are some additional security functionalities with E5. So there's ATP, Advanced Threat Protection. You know, you have Exchange Online protection with your E3 license. ATP just goes in a bit more details. It takes the emails that come in, it sandboxes the emails, it gives you safe link protection, so it checks all the links in the emails, but it also checks all those links in Word documents as well. Okay, so it's not just in the emails, it just goes a little bit further than that. It checks your malware protection. So it gives you a sandbox environment and a safe link, checking all the links within your emails and documents. Threat intelligence. Well, that's interesting, that one. Sometimes we know that people are being phished all the time. So sometimes you need the prevention of that. And the way you do that is train your users. You make sure that they're aware of what a phishing scam is, what it looks like, okay? And you need to see who's vulnerable to these. I'm just going to, if I can, bear with me one moment. Hopefully you can see my screen and you can sort of see a attack simulator. So one of the things in threat intelligence is actually I may want to create a spear phishing attack to my own users. Why? I want to see who actually falls for this. And if I find out who's falling for a phishing scam, then I can train them not to be duped again. So I can look at a report. And I can see, well, actually, I've done a phishing scam already. I can see actually Adele here fell for that scam. She actually clicked on that link and she gave her credentials and supplied them as well. So that's interesting. So if we actually look at that again and sort of say, well, actually launch that attack again, you can sort of see that is really simple. Microsoft's given you this ability that as all the technologies come into this one single platform, managing those technologies is very simple. The layout is very familiar. There's no real training. You can sort of figure out how to manage the individual workloads. So for example here, if I wanted to create a spear phishing campaign, I could sort of say, well, start. I'm going to use a template that's already created. We're going to use a payroll update template. That's great. So let's click on next. And we say, well, actually, I want to use this for Adele because she was already scammed once, or she got caught out once. Let's see if she's learned her lesson. Okay, click on next. And you can sort of see it fills most of this out for you. Customer landing page. So you want to sort of say, well, once they've given me their details, I want to take them to a landing page saying this was just a test, just to let you know that you've been caught out and we're actually going to come and see you and talk about more further training and updating you. If you leave it blank, it will just give you a standard custom landing page. So we go to that. You can see there's my template already in there, and you can see it's got a $sign username. What that's doing is going to automatically just embed that user that I'm using, so it'll have their name in there, so I'll have Adele's name, etc., etc. Click on next. Actually, just go back one step. I'm going to just call this test, so when Adele gets it, we'll know that's the email. Click next, 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 and confirm. And that was it. It's my attack launched, and I'm now testing Adele to see if she opens that. So if we log in as Adele, here with me. And see if she's received that email for that phishing. Dash, that's what I called it. See this email, you just open that up. Update your details. That's all she's getting in there. Dear Adele Valance, it looks pretty legit. Actually, that looks. Click on. Log into Office. Nothing suspicious so far. Well, actually, there is. At the top, secure. She hasn't picked that up. She says portal payroll tooling. She's not picked that up as well. So I can then type in Adele at So 365. Bear with me one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to log in as Adele. Click next. Let's type that in, as you can sort of see. And as I log in to this recent page, because this was part of a phishing awareness, I, as the IT person, will get a note saying, actually, Adele's been caught out again. We need to give some more training in that. And that's part of threat intelligence, which is part of E5. Some security functionalities is coming into play here. Again, back to PowerPoint. So you can sort of see, actually, you know what? There are some advantages on E5. Now, I don't have to go all the way to E5. I can just buy some of those things if I liked the threat intelligence. And there's more to threat intelligence than just that phishing attack simulations. There's more to that. And we need to look at some of those. And we will do that when we do some of the workshops. But I just wanted you to understand, actually, you know what? Don't dismiss all of E5. There may be one or two little golden nuggets in there that you may think, oh, actually, we quite like that functionality. So when you are doing your investigation, look at all the individual components and say, actually, I just want that, and I would just want to add that to E3. About Office 365, and we haven't gone in depth as individual components. As I said, we don't really have the time to do that. But this is the vision that I'm seeing people ask for, this ability to communicate, collaborate on any device at any time. I just want my users to have access to the resources that they need. Done. I don't care where they are, what they're using. And that's great, and that's very liberating, and that's fantastic. But the problem when you do things like that is you are opening up a little can of worms, and that can of worms is actually, how do I protect the data? How do I protect the end users? Okay, how do I protect my environments? Okay, and I guess that's where EMS really comes into place, Enterprise Mobility Suite, and that's what really answers three simple questions. The first question is the identity security piece, managing mobile productivity, and having a single comprehensive solution that isn't going to cost me the earth, isn't going to ask me to retrain, isn't going to be more complicated and more time consuming. And we know it's necessarily necessity to keep up with the market. We know that. However, we've got a bit of a juggling act here. We've got to adopt mobility and collaboration because that's what the company's asking for. Also, I've got to also juggle security, make sure that I meet all the regulations, etc., and yet I'm doing all this with hardly any increase in the budget. Okay, so how do I manage across all these different layers? How do I manage the security around all my employees, business partners, and customers? Okay, I need to protect that data across not just email. Everyone thinks it's email, but it's also around those documents that are in shared collaboration spaces. How do I do that? There's a couple of ways of doing that: securing against new threats, making sure that I'm always up to date, and it's all integrated with the system that I'm currently using. So if we look at security, what does that actually mean? Let's actually go into that a bit further. 63% of confirmed data breaches involve either a weak, default, or stolen passwords. Okay, so if I can actually resolve that, that's a good part of my chunk. But we also know that when we get hackers, they're coming to my environment. Let's say they've got somebody's weak password, and we know how to do that. We've just done a phishing experiment, and Adele's fallen for it twice. So she's given her username and password in. That hacker could be in my environment for nearly 200 days before I detect him. So I need to understand, actually, make sure that the environment is completely who's at my front door, and sort of make sure that anyone who gets in, I can understand what they're doing and see if there is any data breaches. So protect the front door, as I said, protect the data against user mistakes. This happens all the time. You know, you mean to send an email to Sajid Rafiq at bytes.co.uk, but you know another Sajid at another organization, and you started typing in SHA, it's just filled in the address, and off it's gone. That document's gone to the other Sajid. Didn't mean to do it, it was an accident. But how do we protect against those things? And again, we talked about this a moment ago. You know, we know that hackers can be in our environment for up to 200 days. So how do I protect against them causing damage? So let's talk about this individually. Let's talk about the protection out front door. And what does EM for me? Okay, so we talked about Office 365. EMS now starts to say, well, actually, we're going to now put the layers of security to make sure that your Office 365 environment is safe. So the first one is, let's protect that front door. I put some policies into place, say, well, actually, who are you? I want your username and password to come in. Fantastic. I know who you are now. What's your device? Oh, actually, I recognize the device. Brilliant. Tick, tick. Location. Oh, you're outside the LAN network. In that case, what I want to do is give you MFA, multi-factor authentication. The scenario could be that I'm on a bus. I get off quickly off the bus because my stops come on. I was daydreaming, looking out the window. As I get up, the phone falls out of my pocket, and off I run off the bus. Someone else picks up that phone, and they can easily sort of just click this straight into the phone. I didn't put any security passwords in there. And again, I want to make sure that they are who they are. So I could use a multi-factor authentication piece in there. So I could say, well, once you've logged in, once I've done MFA, okay, if everything's ticked, you're in the environment. So I can say, these are the conditions you have to meet to come into my environment. And once you're in, okay, we can sort of look at a couple of things. So now we want to protect our data against mistakes. So Cloud App Security gives me the ability to know which cloud application my users are using and rank them for security reasons. So if they're using an app that doesn't have a high ranking, I say, well, actually, this app isn't secure for these following reasons because they've got a lax security system. And we know that's already happened. The BA fiasco was down to BA saying, actually, we've got third-party products that we are using, or third-party suppliers that we're using, and it was their applications that had let down the security risk. How much of that is true, I don't know, but we know that these sort of things happen. So we can sort of say, also, we know that some reports are saying that actually shadow IT is quite high. Most IT managers don't know how much shadow IT there is out there. I was with an organization about a couple of months ago, and we were looking at their shadow IT, and we did a thorough report on that. And what we found out is the shadow IT cost was almost the same as their IT budget. So these are the departments thinking, actually, my IT department's not providing me what I want. Okay, so we're going to go out and buy our own little solution. So that's interesting, and Cloud App Security will help me with that to make sure that my users are using what is company supplied. We don't want to make sure that documents are put into Dropbox or into Facebook space where I have no control of that. Also, I want to look at prevent data leakage from my apps, make sure that the applications that my users are using, okay, are the ones that are secure by the organization. So let's take an example that allow my users to use their mobile phones. Well, if they're using their mobile phones, they've got active sync. That means that they've synchronized their emails to their mobile phone. If that user leaves the organization, those emails have gone with him or her. How do I protect against that? How do I make sure that actually, you know what, I'm going to allow you to use your own devices, but we're going to make sure that we manage that the company data on those devices. We'll talk about that in a moment in a little bit more detail. And then how do I control the data on-premise and in the cloud? So I can protect documents, and I can sort of say, well, actually, if this document is for Saad Rafiq at bytes.co.uk, he's the only person that can read that document. I put a security layer around that document. If it happens to go to somebody else, so for example, I take that document, say, oh, I'm going to share this with Cassie, okay? I can send that to her, okay? And in fact, she will not be able to look at that document or read that document. In fact, let me see if I can actually just show you that functionality. Let's just go here, demo, into my demo site. And what you'll see here is I've got a document that called Cold Blue, and I want to know who's actually viewed that, denied to. Making sure that you are seeing my, yep. I can also see and when that document was denied, on what dates those documents were opened. I can also or where that document was opened. I can see a map of the world and say, hang on, there's 5 people in Australia. What are they doing opening up this document? We've got no one in Australia. And if I wanted to, I can, and also at any time, the bottom right hand corner, I can revoke access to that document as well. So now I'm keeping the data very secure. I'm keeping the data in-house, and I can sort of say, if the data did get leaked, we can bring that back if we want to. So back to my PowerPoint. Bear with me. Okay. So protect your data against user mistakes. Yes, we've talked a little bit about that. Now to attacks before they can cause damage. This is an interesting one. So what we're doing as part of EM+S is depending on which plan you purchase, we're looking at the behavior of our users. So if, for example, Saad Rafiq logs into Office 365 and he starts to download 30 documents within a space of a minute, that's suspicious behavior. I need to know about that. Okay, he could be doing it for legitimate reasons, but if someone's downloading large files, that's not the usual norm. Also, Saj is logged in from Oxford. Okay, he's also now logged in 5 minutes later in Glasgow. How's that possible? How is it possible that he can log in 2 different places that are a couple of 100 miles or 300 miles apart, or maybe more? I need to have a look at those sort of things. So it gives the nice way of sort of making me understand how are my users behaving. Is it all normal, or is it suspicious behavior? I need to know about it immediately so I can start doing the investigation. So let's talk about mobile productivity. We touched on it a little bit, but mobile productivity isn't just about Windows Intune or an MDM solution. It's a lot more than just that. But we need devices, of course we do. We want to make sure that users can access the resources that they need on any time that they are, wherever they are. That's fine. We want to offer that, but we want to make sure that it's in a safe environment. And we can go through that. So we can look at conditional access. We've talked about that already. But also now I can sort of say, actually, one of the conditions is the phone that you're using, is it the latest iOS or Android operating system? Is it got all the security updates? Is it jailbroken? If it is, we're not letting you on. Okay. If you don't have a security pin on that phone, you can't use that. If you want to come to our environment, you've got to meet the minimum requirements we are expecting all devices to be having. Modern authentication. If your device does not have modern authentication, it's not coming on in my environment. End of story. And once I do get that user onto the environment, I can then sort of say, well, actually, we're going to ring fence the applications that are going to be used for the company. So yes, you can have Word, but you can also have it for personal and the corporate. And the corporate side of things, we're going to keep over here. So now, if you're going to use email, you can only have email on Microsoft Outlook app. You can't have it on the email client. So if you leave the organization, I can wipe that up. I can wipe all the data from that device at the same time. And if you get an email now, and you have an attachment to that email, that can be copied into Excel, Word. Yes, that's brilliant because they're Microsoft apps that are managed by the organization, but you can't copy and paste them into personal apps that have got nothing to do with the organization. Again, keeping the data within the organization, making sure there is no leakage of company information. Again, I've shown this a little bit to you, sort of classify and label the sensitivity of those documents. Who has access to those documents? Is it strict? Is it confidential? And one of the things I can do in the workshops, if I come to you, is go into this bit more detail, show you how easy it is to create, well, I say easy. It's easy to create the labels as a technology, but it's hard to come up with a classification. That's not an easy process. I will say that now. But we want to make sure that as documents are created, yes, please be productive. Please send those to whoever you want to, but let's put some security policies around those. And what we're sort of now looking at is actually as I create the documents, I can sort of say, actually, I'm going to put these security layers onto it. Which devices are they allowed to be used on? Is it for external or internal use only? And then I can share those documents, and then I can track the documents and I can revoke those, as I've shown you earlier. Bit we talked about, but all that I've got to do with, let's say, the year. That's the average increase on IT. That's if you get an increase. I mean, I'm talking to local authorities the moment that I've got to cut their budgets. An increase would be a luxury. So again, I've got to do all this juggling, and yet my increase in my budget isn't huge. So that's where this solution makes sense, where you sort of say, well, actually EMS does make sense a little bit because it integrates with what I've got. It's one complete solution. The managing of this is not hard. The training is quite simple. It's all on a single dashboard. Okay. Now, this slide I quite like because it actually says, as individual components, Cloud App Security, Azure AD Premium, ATA, Microsoft Intune, these are individual workloads that actually hold up EMS story, but actually together they work excellent. Individually, they're good products, but together they're brilliant products. The way that a user can just now pick up a device and say, actually, I want to use this to log into my Office 365. Is it protected? Have you registered with a company? Does it meet the medium requirements? Right, now log in. Do you meet the requirements to log in with? Have you got the right credentials, etc.? Yes, I have. And then tells me where I can go and what I can't do, and then make sure that while I'm in the environment, the data is protected everywhere. And they're all talking to each other seamlessly in the background. And that's quite nice. So we talked about Office 365, great. We talked about a little bit about EMS, and we've done this at a very, very high overview. I said that it's hard to talk about all this in a 30-minute or 45-minute presentation. So we know, what is it, 15, 16 months left until the end of support, extended support for Windows 7. So people are looking at Windows 10. If you're not, then you should be. It's not long before extended support runs out for Windows 7. And we need to now understand what Windows 10 Enterprise gives our users. And there's some really, I'm not going to go into these huge details, but there's some really nice things in there. If you're going to go to LTSB, you need to go there. There's Windows Go, there's App Locker, etc., etc. But there's also direct access with Enterprise. So if I am looking for a VPN solution without adding additional third parties, I've got that built into Windows 10 Enterprise. I've got Autopilot also built into Windows 10 Enterprise. And again, without going into too much details, all that's saying is actually I can go to a manufacturer, order my laptops, get those sent out to the end user directly. Okay, and with Windows Intune, I could, as soon as they log into their PC, as they unbox it, it will automatically configure that PC to the company's profile. So it won't put them as the administrator. It will say these are the apps that you need. This is the configuration for your profile, etc., etc. Again, we can talk about that in more details around the workshops. So Microsoft Enterprise, Microsoft 365 Enterprise, we've gone through that really quickly. So what Microsoft says, here's your Office 365. It's all about productivity. It's all about communicating, creating, collaborating, all those sort of things. Brilliant. Oh, here's EMS. That's to put the security around that. You're thinking, brilliant. And here's Windows 10. Actually, that's making the end user experience a lot tighter, making sure that the integration with the Azure ID join is smoother. The whole story, the whole package comes together now. And if you purchase Microsoft 365 as opposed to those individual components, because we bundled them together, we'll give you a favorable pricing on that. And again, I'm not a licensing expert, so do speak to your account manager regarding that. And there are, again, like with Office and like EMS, there are different flavors or different plans. There's an F1, an E3, and an E5. An E3, you can see the underlying workloads that control those productivity strategies, and you can sort of see there is, I'm not going to go into details of what's the difference between Azure ID Premium 1 and P2. Main difference is a lot of the P2s is automation, while with E3 it's more manual, okay? But we can, again, talk about that in more details. What I will say is, when I've seen organizations look at Office 365 or Microsoft 365, I will say this is very important. Account managers talking to you about, this is where you are now, sir, this, or madam, this is where you'll be in the future, and this is what transition looks like. And that's really good. And technically you'll design, you'll develop, and you'll deliver that technology. That's great, but that's not the story. You've got to make sure that the people in your organization embrace the new technology, adopt it, and use it. So if they don't, the whole project falls apart. I can't emphasize enough that this is just as important as the technology side of it. Only by getting results, outcomes, and successes. And the analogy I use all the time is, if I send you a document an email with a document attached to that email, and I say, could you save that document for me? You'll say to me, well, Saj, where do I save it? Do I save it on my C drive? Do I save it in my OneDrive? Do I save it into SharePoint? Do I save it into shared folders? Do I save it into Yammer? Do I save it into Teams? So you've got to make sure that there's some processes behind it, some thought about which workloads are you using, why are you using that, and making sure that the people are trained to say, actually, I've got this collaboration document, I'm going to share it with the team, and this is where I'm going to share it with. So change management is very important, and change management team here at Bytes. So if you are looking at training your end users or training your own IT staff, please contact your account manager, do speak to our training department, and do actually let them speak to you about the right solution for your company. And there is no one solution for everyone. If you want floor workers, we can provide that. If you want online courses, we can provide that as well. So that is quite important. But again, we can talk about change management as part of the workshop if you require. So what next? Again, I've said it a couple of times, contact your account manager and let them know that what you're trying to do. Let them know that you may be interested in maybe doing a workshop and me coming in and spending a couple of ideas, understanding your strategy and saying how can Office or Microsoft 365 help with that. If you don't have an account manager or you don't know who that is, send an email to tellmemore@bytes.co.uk and either myself or Cassie will respond to you immediately. Apart from that, that's me. Cassie, can I pass it over to you?
Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can submit them via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. Saj is here to answer them as best that he can. If you think of anything, as Saj said, at a later date, have any questions later, you could speak to your account manager. You could email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk and would be more than happy to help. Doesn't seem to be any questions at the moment, so everyone's feeling a little bit shy, which is fine. As I said earlier on, the recording will be made available to you in the next day or so. And if you could just fill out the critique form at the end of the webinar, it should just pop up when it finishes. We'd really appreciate your feedback. So I think that's it from me. No questions here. Saj, thank you very much for your time today on the webinar. And thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. Hope you all have a very great day.